Bill, first on everybody's minds around here these days seems to be what's going to happen to the mall. What are you hearing, and what does it look like?
Well, your guess is as good as mine. I've heard that, well, we do know for sure that Al Boskov did not get the mall, was not able to purchase the mall. So we won't know until a few weeks who actually owns it. But I'm very hopeful that someone is going to come in and totally change the makeup of that mall, because the mall is central to anything that goes on in our downtown. And I think that if you get somebody in there who's committed to the city, it will spur economic development throughout the downtown and the neighborhoods, and people will start to come to Lackawanna Avenue again.
I've been told that one of Boskov's most profitable stores is the Scranton store in the mall. But you hear, nobody goes to the mall, nobody goes, but they go to Al Boskov's store.
Oh, they do, and he's a great businessman. He does a wonderful job.
Yeah, but the mall it's become so uninviting. I park underneath the mall in the parking lot frequently, and it's dark, it's dreary. It needs more lighting and so much. A friend of mine who was in the real estate business developing malls around the country went down and he wrote Al a letter saying, from the minute I entered your parking lot, I felt that this was not a very good place to be. It was frightening. Obviously, women shoppers have to be concerned about that. So I can understand how it slid backwards, but let's just hope we can do something with it. And that might be an area for both the county, the city, and the school board to cooperate as well.
Yeah, and when you mention lighting, the city actually has a project underway. We brought in a consultant to look at the lighting in downtown Scranton. So that is being talked about in City Hall. We do realize that it needs to be upgraded. We're looking at LED lights and things that will last longer and do not need as much maintenance. But I agree with you 100%. The mall is central to everything that goes on downtown. Al Boskov is a great tenant. The rest of the mall we need to develop, and we need to get people down there.
There was a great sense by a number of people that something similar to the Reading Terminal Station would be great. Well, I'm not so sure you could replicate the Reading Terminal Station. But having a wholesale portion of the mall, that was the wholesale block. That's where you went and got your fruit and vegetables and meat wholesale for the restaurants and everything. Mm-hmm. So maybe that portion that's vacant.
Yeah, and I think that's a great idea. Like you said, it wouldn't be, we could base it off of what Reading did, but we have to make it our own. We have to make it the Scranton Terminal or whatever we want to call it, And I think we can do that. We have some of the most innovative minds right in our own borders. If you look at the University of Scranton, Marywood, Lackawanna College, we need to tap into those resources.
And while we're at it, when I was on the school board, and I mentioned this on the show several times, I asked the School of Management at the University of Scranton, the Kenya School of Management, to give us some students that would be willing to look at our school district as a business and come up with a business plan, things that we should be doing. LED lighting was one of them, as a matter of fact, but they covered everything from the grounds to personnel, to our taxing system, to our pensions. They were tremendously helpful. They spent the whole year and gave us a great program that was a footprint for us for probably 3 to 4 years. That was probably a dozen years ago. But it was tapping in to those great assets that we have.
Right.
I need to ask you, and I should have done this in the beginning of the show, give our viewers a little background as to who Bill Gaughan is and where you're from, because it's kind of an interesting story.
Sure. I grew up in Minooka. I graduated from Scranton High School in 2005. I went on to the University of Scranton, and I studied communications and history. I graduated from there in 2009.
You had a radio show at the university, did you not?
Yes, I did. I was involved in the radio and TV productions, and that was just a great experience. And the faculty and staff at the University of Scranton, I wish I could go back and relive those days because it was just outstanding. When I left the University of Scranton, I had a really interesting experience. I worked for the City of Scranton. I worked in the Office of Economic and Community Development. And that's really where I developed a great understanding of the inner workings of City Hall and of government. and where I kind of developed my passion for public service. While I was working for OECD, I decided to go back to school at night, and I took night classes at the University of Scranton, and I attained my master's degree in secondary education, and then got my certification to teach grade 7 to 12 history. I decided to resign my position from City Hall, and that's when I decided to get involved in politics and government, and I ran for City Council. And my wife is 8.5 months pregnant, and we're going to have our first child August 4th.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, that's
Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
That's awesome. Your fellow councilmen, you all seem to get along well. Talk a little bit about the dynamics of council today as opposed to what it was 4 years ago.
Well, we get along. I mean, we've had great disagreements, but as I said earlier in the show, that's the hallmark of a democratic government. But that doesn't mean you have to hate your fellow colleague or you have to try to one-up them or try to embarrass them. I think there has to be a level of professionalism, and I think when the new majority took over, everybody got together and said, look, we've got to set an example. You know, we don't want to have people coming up to us slapping us on the back for working together. It should just be understood. You know, you're an elected official. You have an obligation to work with your colleagues. It shouldn't be something that, oh wow, it's great that you work together. You have to work together to get the job done. So there's a great effort on council to work not only amongst ourselves, but with the mayor and the administration.
And it's showing, I think, in the way people feel about the city. Mm-hmm. They're not quite as embarrassed as they were before. And I think you are getting things done. What are some of your other plans for the future, Bill, that you think are things that we ought to be looking at?
Well, a real concern of mine, and when I go to the different neighborhood meetings, is that people want to be better engaged with their government. I've had a conversation with the administration and a gentleman from Hazleton about a text messaging service, similar to the app that we talked about before. You would text Scranton to, let's say, a number 5195. You would get hooked up in Scranton's text messaging service if there was an emergency, if there was a community event that you should know about. Anything major going on in the city, you'll get an automatic text message. You won't get overloaded with them, but you know, it's a strategic thing that I think we ought to do. As I said before, Citizens Connect, being able to streamline the Department of Public Works process, make that easier, more user-friendly. And I think one of the things that we've talked about, even with Pell, our recovery coordinator, is making it easier to get a permit, you know, to pay your garbage bill. Right now, you can't do that online. You should be able to pay those bills online and get a permit in all these different things on the internet. You know, let's get ourselves into this century with that kind of thing, and I think it'll bring young people together also, because as you know, technology changes each and every day.
You know, I just came back from Montreal, and a couple years ago I was out in Vancouver. Canadians seem to have a better handle on living in the green economy. The convention center in Montreal has a green roof where they grow fruit and vegetables and herbs for a lot of the restaurants in Montreal. When I was in Philadelphia recently, I noticed the green roofs all over. I'm hoping that council would consider some type of tax incentive to businesses to put the money into a green roof, because I think it would open up so much for the city to get people downtown, even more than they are. Turn every Friday into a First Friday.
Right. I agree with you. And one of the initiatives that we have currently underway, and I can't take credit for it, it's Councilman Evans that came up with it. He wants to have something called idea sessions, where each councilman focuses on a specific area. Mine might be technology. And we get people together throughout the community. What are your ideas? Let's go to the University of Scranton. What do you have? What do you think? You know, because we talked about it before. You have to go out and you have to solicit this. You have to come up with the initiatives and the plan and the business plan that you talked about before, and it's so important. And we're very, very, very positive about all of this stuff. We want to hear what people think. We want to go out amongst the community members and listen to them, because as somebody said once, you know, to serve the people, you have to love the people, and you have to go amongst them and listen to them. So that's something that this council is taking on, that initiative.
That's a terrific, terrific idea. And when we come back, Some closing thoughts from Councilman Bill Gaughan as to how we together can make the city a better place to live.
Have you been denied Social Security benefits? You can appeal. If you are disabled and if you have been paying taxes, you've earned your rights to your Social Security benefits. Call O'Malley and Langen. And remember, we don't get paid unless you win.
Bill, I love the idea that you just talked about before that you and Wayne Evans are working on as far as idea sessions. There's just so many things that can be done, and hopefully you can convince representatives of the county and school board to come to these things. I'd love to see a program in the city where we start putting murals on the sides of buildings. Philadelphia has turned that into a major tourist attraction.
Great idea. Great idea.
And I mean, we got universities here with art departments that would probably be real helpful to us. What's your hope to accomplish over the next 12 months for the city?
Well, I think that we're going to get together, all of my colleagues on council. We're going to go out into the community and we're going to listen to the people. And we're going to come up with different ideas to move our city forward as it relates to economic development, our Department of Public Works, how can we serve the people better? And, you know, in 2 years on city council, you know, there's the regular things that we do every meeting. You know, we enact ordinances and resolutions, but the most important thing that we do is we listen to the people and we try to help them. And that's really the objective, I think, of myself and all of my colleagues. And I think there is a great hope for the city of Scranton. I have a young son that's on his way, hopefully, within the next few weeks, and I want to see him enjoy the city of Scranton as I've enjoyed it for these past 28 years of my life. My family has been in this city since the 1800s, came over as immigrants, and they worked hard to build this city up from the ground up, really, in the iron furnaces and everything else. So I don't think we can give up on Scranton. I'm not giving up. I know you're not giving up, and neither are my colleagues, and I think we have a bright future ahead of us.
Bill, thank you for the service
Thank you very
you're
much.
giving to the city, and good luck. And I feel more optimistic after this show
There you
than I
go.
did before. So thank you for sharing your Sunday morning with us, and you be the judge.
If you are disabled and unable to work, you may be entitled to Social Security benefits. In order to obtain benefits, you must prove your disability is severe enough to keep you from working. Social Security is financed through a dedicated payroll tax. If you have been paying taxes, then you have been paying into Social Security. And if you are no longer able to work, you've earned your rights to your Social Security benefits. Call the lawyers at O'Malley and Langen, representing Social Security claimants for a quarter of a century.
The Greenhouse Project invites you to join us at Scranton's Nayock Park for nature walks through the seasons by area naturalist Jane Fry. You'll hear park history, plus learn about Nayock's plant life. For more information, click on scrantongreenhouse.org.